While the nurse wasn't being watched by the families, she swung her knife at the newborn babies. By the time the adults outside the ward noticed what was happening, it was already too late. The door to the ward was locked tight. All they could do was watch helplessly as this crazed nurse mercilessly took their children's lives. Finally, security smashed through the glass with a fire extinguisher. But by then, all the newborns in the ward had already fallen victim to her. When the frantic families burst in, the nurse was already lying on the floor, lifeless. No one could have imagined this was only the beginning. Blood covered the floor. The cribs were deathly silent. Over a dozen newborns, all murdered. The scene was utterly horrific. Police arrived at the scene immediately, but what made it even more cruel was that Detective Newman, who was assigned to the case, had also lost his newborn son in this massacre. He had only left for a few dozen minutes to go back to the station. In that brief moment, he went from being a happy man to a father who had lost his child. Overwhelming grief and a crushing sense of helplessness destroyed him. This case became a nightmare that would haunt him forever. After the incident, despite the police's full investigation, all evidence died with the nurse. It was as if she had been controlled by some unknown force in an instant, killing purely for the sake of killing. And this bizarre massacre was eventually hastily filed away as an unsolvable mystery case. Time flew by. Years had passed since that nursery massacre. Newman never recovered from the pain of losing his son. This obsession became his inner demon, keeping him trapped in guilt and suffering for years. What was even more cruel was that his wife also died of grief, unable to bear the pain of losing their son. Within just a few short years, Newman's family was destroyed and he was left alone. But he didn't resign or run away. Instead, he actively stayed on the front lines of criminal investigation, obsessively trying to uncover the truth from all those years ago. He never believed in so-called motiveless crimes. He firmly believed there had to be something hidden behind it. But what he didn't know yet was that what he was up against wasn't an ordinary criminal at all. Early one morning, Newman suddenly received a phone call. Another massacre had occurred at a border kindergarten. It turned out that shortly after the kindergarten opened that morning, a boy had climbed over the wall and broken in. He pulled out a gun and opened fire indiscriminately on all the teachers and students in the yard. Gunshots echoed throughout the entire kindergarten. One life after another fell. Over 30 children and teachers were killed on the spot. After the massacre ended, the boy also died by his own gun. As Newman investigated, this school massacre had no argument beforehand. No conflict, no warning signs whatsoever. Exactly like that massacre years ago. Once again leaving behind a case with no motive, no leads, no logic. A 000 case. After the massacre occurred, it immediately caused a massive uproar. Countless reporters camped out overnight in front of the kindergarten, wanting to get to the truth. Just when the case had hit a dead end, another group of people arrived at the scene. They claimed to be from the Supernatural Investigation Bureau. After a brief explanation, they took out some special equipment and began investigating the scene. While the investigation was in full swing here, in a swimming pool not far from the kindergarten, the next tragedy was about to unfold. The pool's cleaning lady was staring with sinister eyes at the group of children about to jump into the water. Seeing all the kids enter the pool, she turned and went to the locker room. From a backpack, she took out the tools she had prepared in advance. Then without hesitation, she connected herself to a high-voltage electrical cable. After making these preparations, she slowly walked toward the pool. The lifeguard nearby saw her strange behavior and tried to stop her, but unexpectedly, the children in the pool also realized something was wrong at that moment. They frantically swam toward the shore, but it was still too late. Newman, who received the news, rushed to the scene immediately, looking at yet another indiscriminate massacre. Even Newman, slow as he was, sensed that this case seemed to have countless connections to the recent kindergarten shooting, but this time was different from before. While conducting his investigation, Newman unexpectedly obtained an important clue from a victim's family member. The victim's family claimed that 3 days ago, they had encountered an old man covered in strange runic tattoos. That old man had warned her that something bad was going to happen to her son, and in the coming days, more tragedies would occur. He told her she must protect her child. At the time, the victim's mother had just taken him for a rambling lunatic and paid no attention, but she never expected the tragedy would actually happen. After hearing her words, Newman immediately sent his subordinates to investigate the old man's identity. Meanwhile, the people from the Supernatural Investigation Bureau also had a lead. They called Newman over and told him about their discovery. On the kindergarten wall, they had found a massive handprint. That handprint clearly didn't belong to this world. It looked more like it came from a demon from hell. Hearing the theory given by the Bureau people, Newman couldn't accept this absurd explanation at all. As a staunch materialist detective, he only believed in evidence, logic, and truth. But when the investigator turned on the UV light, and he saw the room full of small handprints, Newman was stunned.
Tiny prints all around it. They match our Victor's prints. It's like they were trying to escape.
This second escape theory claimed that the children's souls, after death, seemed to have encountered an even more terrifying presence. Not only that, they also retrieved audio recordings from the kindergarten surveillance. After analyzing it with professional supernatural recording equipment, they captured a segment of demonic whispers that human ears couldn't hear. They also told Newman that in that nursery massacre years ago, they had captured this same sound. Hearing that strange sound made Newman immediately fall into memories of losing his son. At this time, the investigation into the runic old man also had results. It turned out this old man used to be a priest, but at some point, he began studying black magic. He even tried to summon demons through black magic. Because of this, he was also expelled by the church. What made Newman and the others even more suspicious was that at several of these crime scenes, surveillance had captured footage of him appearing. But finding him now wouldn't be easy, because he had no fixed address and no one knew where he was. So at the suggestion of the Supernatural Investigation Bureau investigator, the group found a psychic medium, trying to locate the old man through spiritual means. But when the woman saw the runes on the old man's body in the photo, she refused to take the job no matter what. She recognized those runes. Those runes were all black magic incantations, containing extremely powerful and evil forces. She couldn't afford to provoke someone like that. At this point, Newman pulled out a stack of files. Seeing that the soft approach wasn't working, he had to go hard. What he was holding was this woman's criminal records over the years. Newman stated bluntly that if she wasn't willing to help them, he'd be happy to send her in for a stay. The helpless woman could only agree. She took out several tarot cards and began divination. But unexpectedly, the cards she turned over one after another all bore symbols of demons. This immediately left her stunned.
Bueno, ayúdame, dai.
No la friegue, venimos a que nos dijera algo sobre el sacerdote, no que nos espante.
Don't touch it!
Hearing a child's cry for help suddenly coming from upstairs, several people rushed up. The woman had realized she had touched something she shouldn't have. This was just a warning to her. She immediately kicked Newman and the others out. The lead was cut off again. Newman lay in bed with no options, but he couldn't give up either. First, as a police officer, it was his duty. He had to find the truth. Second, he needed to figure out whether his son's death had any connection to all this. While everyone's attention was focused on this broad daylight kidnapping, a chubby kid with a backpack, completely unfazed by what had just happened, calmly walked into a mall. Then he pulled out a remote control. This massacre happening in his jurisdiction again left Newman frustrated. Fortunately this time, his assistant found an important clue. It turned out that before each of these incidents, a mother and son had appeared, yet they had perfectly avoided all disasters. It wasn't that they deserved to die, it was that all of this seemed a bit too coincidental. Just then, firefighters actually found a survivor in the rubble. Newman and the others rushed in immediately.
Estuvo aquí.
¿Cuál padre?
En la iglesia de los niños. Estuvo aquí. Antes de que. Antes de que sí.
The woman stopped breathing right after she finished speaking, but her words provided Newman and the others with important clues. They rushed overnight to the nearby children's church, but when they arrived, they discovered that this church had been abandoned for many years. The surroundings had an eerie atmosphere. In order to find clues, Newman still steeled himself and went inside. They quickly discovered that the interior walls of the church were covered everywhere with bizarre murals. The floor was also covered with strange runes drawn by someone. The two were startled. They looked at the cabinet that had just made the sound.
Still set her up.
Yeah, I knew that.
Looking at the door knocked open by the baby carriage and the terrifying laughter coming from inside the room, the two summoned their courage and walked into that room. This was a spacious hall. The surrounding walls were covered with dried blood in those runes. At the same time, a foul stench permeated the room. Soon they found the source of the stench. That foul smell was emanating from this toppled Jesus statue. Just when the two were startled, something even more terrifying happened. That statue actually spoke. It said it was a messenger from hell. As long as they could help it kill a child, all disasters would end. And after the deed was done, it could even help Newman resurrect his wife and child.
Fair trade for killing just one child. No one would offer you more. One dead kid in exchange for hundreds alive.
I am not a martyr.
No. Después hay que cabrón.
As soon as it finished speaking, Newman's wife's voice suddenly rang out around them. Newman looked in the direction of the sound. Sure enough, behind him he saw his wife and child that he had been thinking about day and night. Newman held his son in his arms, immersed in the emotion of regaining what was lost.
Rita, that's not your wife. Rita, back inside the circle, please!
The investigator's reminder fell on deaf ears, until he lifted the little blanket covering his son and discovered that underneath was actually a withered corpse. He finally snapped awake.
Rita, that's not your wife! Come back! Rita, get back inside the circle! Rita, get back inside the circle, please!
The statue shattered into pieces. The investigator stood up, wanting to comfort Newman, who was somewhat broken down beside him. But at this moment, Newman suddenly seemed like a different person, incredibly violent. He suddenly began attacking the investigator frantically. Fists the size of sandbags kept landing on the other's face. Fortunately, at this critical moment, an old man suddenly appeared and knocked Newman out with a stun gun. The one who saved them was precisely the runic old man they had been desperately searching for. Seeing that Newman had returned to normal, Rice finally let Newman out. Father Rice told him that he had been controlled by the demon's mind, which was why he had acted that way just now. Afterwards, Rice told them a story. It said that when Jesus first came to the world, a demon had wanted to kill him completely, but his plan was detected by angels. Intimidated by their power, the demon went into hiding, until Jesus was nailed to the cross and promised to return to the world in 1,000 years to save humanity. But at this critical 1,000-year covenant milestone, the demon seized the opportunity. He launched a war in the name of the Pope, plunging the entire world into flames of war. And now is the second important note of Jesus' 1,000-year covenant. He has found the reincarnated Savior. It's that boy he kidnapped. As for the recent cases, they're all the demon's handiwork to eliminate the Savior. Now many Orthodox clergy priests in the country have already fallen and turned dark. They know the boy is the sacred reincarnation. As long as he's alive, the demon cannot descend. This 1,000-year plan will also fall short, and the seemingly rebellious Father Rise, who was expelled by the church, is the only one who guards his true heart and protects the light. He was expelled not because he blasphemed the faith, but because he exposed the dark inside story of the church. Because he refused to go along with them, he was deliberately smeared and expelled. Rise carved runic formations all over the room, trying to use them to shield the demon's sensing of the reincarnated master. But this method wasn't a long-term solution. He decided to find an opportunity to send the boy abroad, find a powerful monastery, and directly awaken the power within him there. Then there would be no worries. After hearing his words, Newman decided to help Rise send the boy away to prevent disasters from happening again. He contacted his colleagues and had them use their informant connections to find a passage where they could secretly leave the country. You know, in Mexico there are plenty of these kinds of passages, but the one they chose clearly wasn't ordinary. Sure enough, they hadn't gone far when the little boy grabbed his mother's hand tightly, refusing to go any further no matter what. Seeing this, Rise knew the boy must have sensed something, so the group immediately turned back and chose another passage. But this other passage led to a secret room. The room was full of gold and drugs. Rise keenly sensed that this was a trap set for them by the demon. He told everyone not to touch these things and to leave quickly. But at this moment, Newman raised doubts. He kept asking Rise whether this child was really the reincarnated master. Seeing this, Rise immediately determined that Newman had been controlled by the demon. He told the others to leave quickly while he himself took out a cross.
Where are they?
Sure enough, as the incantation from his mouth continued, Newman also knelt on the ground in pain with rolled-back eyes. But just then, the surroundings suddenly shook violently. The originally dim lights all went out. The group lit the signal flares they had prepared in advance. Under the glaring red light, an eerie voice came from the passage. The terrified mother and son scrambled out of the passage. The one chasing out was Newman. He caught up with them in a few steps and snatched the boy from the woman's arms. Just as he was about to strangle the boy's mother picked up a rock and knocked Newman out cold. To completely eliminate the demon, the group dragged Newman back to the secret room and nailed him directly to the cross. Father Rise was going to use a special runic formation to exorcise the demon from Newman. But before the ritual even began, the demon resisted first. Swarms of scorpions began appearing continuously in the room, crawling onto everyone's bodies. After successfully dealing with several guides, Newman directly pulled out the iron nails from his hands. The next second, he stabbed directly at the investigator. Just as he was about to go on a killing spree, Rise took off his clothes, revealing his body covered in runes.
With the blood of our true Savior, I command you to leave this man's body and order you into
The moment the incantation was completed, the demon also entered Rise's body. He knew the demon's power was too strong. To completely seal the demon and end the 1,000-year sacrifice, he actively gave up himself. Using his soul as a prison, his flesh as shackles, he forcibly imprisoned all the demon's power, enduring extreme pain and suppressing the demon's struggle to break free. At the last moment before his consciousness completely fell, he used his last sacred power to seal himself along with the demon Beelzebub inside him into an ancient sacred sarcophagus. Before long, everything calmed down. Newman also regained his consciousness. Fortunately, the investigators still had a breath of life. They wrapped those who hadn't survived in white cloth. Then they found a bundle of dynamite in the secret room and completely buried this sinful place underground. Afterwards, the investigator went to the Vatican and told the Pope about the reincarnated master. And Newman, after experiencing this series of events, gradually let go of the obsession in his heart and took on the responsibility of protecting the reincarnated master and his mother. This film isn't just a low-grade horror film relying on gore and terror for attention. It has its own sense of destiny and tragic core. Newman lost his entire family, obsessed for half his life, yet still could shoulder responsibility. Father Rise bore the burden of infamy, walked alone, and ultimately died for his faith, sacrificing himself. All who guard the light are enduring extreme pain and sacrifice. There are no miracles descending from heaven, no easy victories. All peaceful times are because someone is fighting with their lives, carrying the burden forward. And the film's ending doesn't give us false perfection either, but leaves behind endless regret. The struggle between light and darkness never has an endpoint. Demons can be sealed, but never completely eradicated. The so-called battle between good and evil has never been a one-time showdown, but an eternal vigil. Today's story ends here. Thank you for watching.